I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to the Webby-nominated podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Book of the Month Club is this week's sponsor. They're offering listeners their first book for only $5 with code ZIBBY, Z-I-B-B-Y. Again, that's code ZIBBY for your first book for $5 to Book of the Month Club, which, by the way, is amazing. I subscribe every month. I get to pick from 5 of their favorite books. Most of the time, one of them is by an author I've had on my podcast, and then it just arrives. I've given it as a gift. I adore it, and you will too. So think of it for gifts, and for sure, go on bookofthemonth.com and subscribe yourself. I am so excited to be here today with Mitch Albom, who is the author of 7 #1 New York Times bestsellers, including Tuesdays with Morrie, the best-selling memoir of all time. His book collectively have sold more than 40 million copies worldwide and have been translated into 47 languages. His latest memoir is Finding Chika, a little girl, an earthquake, and the making of a family. Mitch has written award-winning TV films, plays, a musical, and has written a syndicated newspaper column for 30 years. He was voted America's best sports columnist by the Associated Press Sports. He founded SAY Detroit in 2006, which oversees 9 full-time charities in the Metro Detroit area. In 2010, he began operating the Have Faith Haiti Mission Orphanage. He currently lives with his wife, Janine, who he calls Miss Janine in this book, in Michigan. So welcome to Mitch. Thanks for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books, Mitch. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, Finding Chika. Please tell listeners what this book is about and what inspired you to write it.
Well, that's a big question. So, I operate an orphanage in Haiti. I have since the earthquake of 2010. I'm there every month. We have 52 children. 3 days before the earthquake happened, a little girl was born whose name was Chika John. She, on the 3rd day of her life, was inside a cinder block one-room house with her mother when the earth shook and the house collapsed around them. The roof fell off. Miraculously, she survived. That night, she slept out in the sugarcane fields in the dirt when she was 3 days old and slept there for the next 6 or 7 weeks of her life. So you could say that she was born into the soil of her homeland, and she was pretty tough. Our lives came together when she was 2 years old and her mother died in that same cinder block house, giving birth to a baby brother. There was no doctor present. That's not uncommon in Haiti. I'm sure whatever went wrong could have been fixed if she were in an American hospital and she'd be alive today, but she wasn't in an American hospital, so she died. Little Chika was taken away that day and was brought to us at our orphanage, and that began our life together. And for the next couple of years, Chika was the youngest child that we had, and the bossiest, and the brashest, and the bravest, and the loudest. And she told all the other kids where they could go and what line to stand in and when they could eat and everything. And she was just a delight, a very brave, brash, bold delight. And then when she was 5 years old, I got a phone call that there was something the matter with her, that her face was drooping. And we got her to the only neurologist that was available in Port-au-Prince, and we got her to the only MRI machine in the entire country. And when the report came back, it said there is a mass on this child's brain, and whatever it is, there's no one in Haiti who can help her. And we scrambled to get her a visa and paperwork, and next thing you know, she was coming to America at age 5. We thought we would end up having her for a couple of months while our brilliant American surgeons would take out this mass, and then she'd be okay, and she'd go back and live amongst the kids in Haiti. And she never went home. And she ended up staying with us and becoming our daughter. And for 2 years, we traveled around the world with her, trying to find a cure. And the book Finding Chika is the story of that journey to find a cure, but instead finding something else, which is a family. And all the ways that we had our eyes opened as a couple who did not have children and were in their late 50s, suddenly had a little 5-year-old precocious girl who didn't look like them, didn't talk like them, didn't come from them, but was every bit our little girl. And I hope it's an inspiring, uplifting kind of story, even in the light of what turned out to be a sad event in the end.
It is an inspiring story, heartbreaking,
Thank
but
you.
beautiful. One of the things I found really interesting was your relationship with Miss Janine, your wife, Janine, and how you had gone through a period of time where you didn't actively want to have kids, and you kept putting it off until when you did want kids, it became impossible to do so. And I feel like there was a lot of beating yourself up in this book about wishing you could go back and doing it again. Do you think you would feel differently if you knew that it wasn't your timing? I feel like you kept thinking, if I had just known earlier, things would be so different.
Yeah, well, I think if all of us got to live our life through the prism of our later days, we'd all be a lot smarter. I want to be clear that it was me, not my wife, who delayed having children. And it was me, not my wife, who was afraid of the commitments. And she wanted kids. And we didn't get married until our very late 30s. And so, and even after we got married, I kind of delayed. I did that thing like, well, you know, we should be married first for a couple of years, and then we'll have, and I don't think we realized how late in life that is to try to have kids. And then by the time we did try, it was too late and it didn't happen. And so we sort of settled into this role of aunt and uncle because we have 15 nieces and nephews. And so we became that aunt and uncle who took the kids for weekends and took the kids on some vacations and helped celebrate their birthdays. And on Christmas Eve would go over and bring all the presents. But then on Christmas morning, there was nobody in the house, you know, and that was us for all those years. And I think my wife, you know, bravely and very admirably kind of dealt with it and said, all right, well, that's just not to be. But the fact is, I was more at fault for that than she was for many years until we took over the orphanage and until Chika came to live with us. That was this big empty spot in our lives. And then it was filled in a most remarkable way. Not a usual way, but a remarkable way.
So Chika came to you in the beginning of this book. She's one of the characters, really, not just in the past, but as you're writing it. And a lot of the book is describing your act of writing this book, how it's difficult for you to write, it's very personal, and yet Chika kept coming into the room literally while you were writing. Can you tell me more about that experience?
Well, I knew that, first of all, when you write a book like this, you don't want people to be scared of it, like, oh, I can't read a book about a child who dies. It's too sad, because then they would be dismissing and missing a great story. But I understand the feeling. And so right from the very first page, you know that she died already. It's not one of those books that as you go along, she's getting sicker. And so it's not like that at all. But then I also, you know she died because I say that she died, but yet she's back. And Chika would always come back. It would always come downstairs with me in the morning because I get up early and she got up early. And I wanted to let my wife sleep because the day was hard enough. And so Chika would come down with me and we'd sit in my office and I'd give her a magic marker or a pad or a doll or whatever. And I would try to write my books and she would sit at my feet and I'd say, now, Chika, you know, you have to be quiet. And of course, at 2 minutes, she'd say, you know, can I have another marker? Can I have a pad? What are you doing? What are you writing about? So, and her dialogue and her conversation was so much a part of who she was. She was so funny and she butchered the English language in such a way that was so endearing that I thought, I've got to make this a conversation. So I wrote it that she's back and she's saying to me, well, when are you going to start writing about me? And of course, I had been delaying doing that because I was kind of dealing with my grief and not sure how to do it. And she kind of coaxes me through it. And so the whole book is a conversation with her. And that's really, if you really want to know what our relationship was, that it was a verbal relationship. Yes, we played physically and I lifted her and carried her and all that. But first and foremost, it was the way she communicated. And I thought that would be the best way to tell it in the book.
And I love how on Instagram you've been showing all these videos of you with Chika and, you know, songs and lullabies and all the rest of it. It's amazing.
It's pretty close to how it is in the book,
Yeah,
right?
It is.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I feel like I already saw this.
Yeah.
In the book, you also reference time that you spent with Morrie from your famous book, Tuesdays with Morrie, and how he had told you that his last months, quote, proved to be the most vibrant and likened them to the brilliant colors of a dying leaf. And now when you go through this with Chika's illness, I was wondering, did you see that same sort of vibrancy in the waning days of her life, or do you think that it only comes with the wisdom of old age?
Yeah, I think it's different with a child. You know, there are several things that were different and several things that were the same with Tuesdays with Morrie. Ironically, it was 20 years to the week that I found out that Morrie had ALS, that I found out that Chika had DIPG, this terrible stage 4 brain tumor. 20 years to the week.
You're going to have to make that a vacation week from now on.
Yes. Yeah, right. At least every 20 years.
Right, every 20, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Every 20 years.
And with Morrie, you know, I sat alongside a dying older man and learned a tremendous amount of lessons about my life and, as it turned out, other people's lives. With Chika, I didn't so much sit alongside as play alongside and carry alongside and travel alongside, but it was still time spent with what turned out to be a dying little girl, and also had my eyes open and illuminated and learned so many things that I try to put in the book in 7 sort of lessons, one for each year that she lived on Earth. The difference was, with Morrie, I never felt like I was supposed to save him. Sorry.
Oh.
And with Chika, I did. No, it's okay.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. Sorry. No, it's heartbreaking. It's just...
That was the difference. You know, when I didn't save her, then I felt like I had failed. And for a long time, I had to fight that. Whereas with Morrie, I felt, well, it was inevitable, and he was 78, and he knew it was coming, and he accepted it. So Chika didn't know what was coming. That was her blessing, you know? And we didn't spend any of the 2 years that we had together talking about, Chika, what have you learned about life now that you know you're going to die? She didn't have any idea that she was going to die, and we kept it that way, and I'm glad that we did. I know there are some parents who deal with these situations who feel like transparency is the most important thing, and explain to the kid why they're going to the hospital, and explain what cancer is, and explain what a tumor is, and I fully respect that position. But I didn't do it, and I wouldn't do it. I wanted Chika to remain the beautiful child that she was, and so we turned it into just childhood trips and childhood adventures and childhood whatever. And the few times in her life that she asked, why are we going to the doctor? I would say, well, he's going to help you, walk better, or he's going to help you feel better, and then we'll go back to Haiti. It was always, when can I go back to Haiti? And that's, until she kind of lost her ability to speak and awareness of, which is one of the byproducts of this disease, she was a child, and she was hopeful, and she was optimistic, and that's the gift, I think, that we can give her. So there were many similarities between Morrie, but there was that one big difference.
And I know this goes without saying, it's impossible for parents to save their kids in these situations. I mean, that's one of the things about giving birth or adopting or falling in love with a child is, as soon as you create the life or bring the life into your own, it has a natural end. It's just a matter of when. Are you there to see it or not? It's like the most...
Yeah, but I didn't want to be there to see it.
I know.
And I didn't, I wanted to go first.
I know.
And that's still the hardest part of it, is like anniversaries of days or her birthday where you say, okay, Chika would have been, 10 years old. Next year, January, she'll be 10, double digits. And it's always would have been going to school, would have been getting married, would have been going to college. Those are hard. But that's not the upthrust of the book. That's my kind of burden to bear. And you asked me, so I answer, because I'm happy to answer anything you ask me. But the book really celebrates, and in fact, towards the end, I say this very clearly. There are a lot of ways that families can come together. The traditional way, the adoptive way, the blended families, in your 50s and a kid who comes up from Haiti and joins you from an orphanage. But no matter how families come together and no matter how they ultimately come apart, this is true. You can't lose a child. And we did not lose a child. We were given a child. And it's on that optimistic note that I wrote the book, and I don't want anybody to think that I want sympathy or for anybody to feel sorry for us. We were given a child, and it was the best gift ever. And whether your child lives to outlive you or only lives a couple of years, there are kids with DIPG who get it at 4 and are dead at 4.5. She got it at 5 and lived till 7. That's a miracle in the DIPG community. So it was a gift. It still is.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry.
I don't feel sorry for you. I just feel your pain.
Yeah.
And,
well,
anyway.
I just miss her, that's all.
Well.
When I talk about her. But I like talking about her.
Do you feel that writing about her helped? Did that help you process it? I know you came down with all sorts of physiological symptoms as you were trying to write about it.
Yeah, that was weird. I thought it would be very cathartic, and I found it to be kind of cathartic when I began it and all these conversations, and because I could write what she would say, or how she would sing, do a dear, a email, dear. And I'd say, no, it's female. What? female, not email. No, it's my mouth. I can say what I want. That's how her logic, and I put those in, or what she told me once. She started singing I could still see her because I have the video. She started singing supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and she had a pencil on the desk, and then she banged her pencil. She said, "Now you sing it." I said, "You want me to sing it? You sing it." I said, "How does it go?" And she looked at me with the most exasperated face, like, "You don't watch Mary Poppins before? Are you crazy?" Because she couldn't imagine a world in which everybody didn't know all the words to Mary Poppins. So recreating those conversations and that was joyous in its own way. But you're right, I did get sick, quite sick. And I thought, quite frankly, that I was having a stroke or multiple. I would get dizzy and my right side would go numb and couldn't feel my feet and my cheek. And at one point, they raced me to the hospital and took all these tests, and ultimately it was determined that it was grief combined with a lot of dehydration and too much coffee and over caffeinization. And so they said, you need to sort of cut this out for a while. And they said, it's not going to go away right away. It's going to stay with you for, probably another 3 to 6 months, even if you stop coffee and even if you hydrate and even if you sleep.
How much coffee are we talking? How many?
I had like 10 cups a day.
10 cups? Yeah, okay, fine. Now I don't feel bad about it.
Now I don't have any. None? I'm totally off caffeine, totally off all of it. I don't even have decaf coffee or decaf tea, just nothing. And so she helped me in that way. But it did stick around for a while till I finished the book. And my wife was so much smarter than I was because she said, this isn't, I had EEGs, EKGs, MRIs of my brain. I had a carotid artery test, you name everything. And she said, they're not going to find anything. You're going to be okay. And I said, well, then what is this? She said, it's grief. And I said, no. I put all that behind me already. It's been a year and a half. She said, Mitch, you loved her, and that was about it. And she was right. Of course, she's right about most things. And, in a certain way, I don't mind paying a physical price for having to write this story because, that's the price of loving a child, and I'm okay with it.
How does Miss Janine feel about the book? Do you feel like it helped her? Like, did she help you read along with it, or was it too painful? I feel like it would be such a pain. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. All my books, my wife makes me read to her. She doesn't sit and read them. She makes me read them out loud. She seems to enjoy that more. And in this particular case, it was tough. It was a lot of tears, but there were a few things she asked me to take out, which I did. But it was critical for me that she was on board with every word of this because this is as much her story as it is mine. And it's a story about the two of us and our marriage. And a whole chapter of one of the 7 lessons that Chika kind of left behind all has to do with her and how you understand your partner, your spouse, so differently once a child comes in. And I was so stupid when I was younger man, and I worried about, if we have a child, it's going to take away from me, and she'll probably spend all her time with the kid, and I'm going to it's going to be 2 against 1, all those silly things you worry about. And once Chika came into our life, not only was I not that, but I so appreciated, I saw this whole other side of my wife that I never got a chance to see. This nurturing maternal side, this singing lullabies to Chika and walking her into the bathroom and shutting the door on me and saying, privacy, please. That's what Chika would say. Privacy, please, because girls do that and men have to wait. And just Chika would take her hair and put it over her own head because my wife has long, dark hair. And she'd say, Mr. Mitch, Miss Janine and I have the same hair, and I knew she was trying to look like her and be like her. And it was so lovely, and so wonderful to see my wife blossom like that. And I just felt bad, why didn't we do this sooner? Why was I so stupid and selfish when we were younger? And, I'm so glad that even though it was for a brief period of time, I got to see that and she got to have that. And she has it now with all her 52 kids, so it's a lot. But yeah, so all of which is to say she's okay with it. She cries a lot. She doesn't come on these book tour things. It's too hard for her. She doesn't come listen to me talk or whatever. It's too hard for her. But she's good. She wants, like I do, she wants the world to know who Chika was and wants her to live on. And of course, all the profits from this book go to the orphanage. I don't take anything. And so we know that, if people buy this book or it finds an audience, here around the world, that's only going to help the kids, and that'll be Chika's sort of legacy to her brothers and sisters. And they were all her brothers and sisters. I mean, we don't distinguish between blood relatives at the orphanage. Once you're in, these are your brothers and sisters for life. And I know she'd like to help them.
How did you get involved? I know you have so many charities that you support, but you don't just support charities. You are down there in Haiti, hands-on, like actually doing such good work and helping so many people, all these kids and all of this. Is giving back just something that has always been important to you, or?
No, I have to be honest with you. It wasn't. I was very selfish, really, through my 20s and into my 30s. I think it was more when I sat with Morrie and he kind of admonished me a little bit to that degree. He said, "What do you do for your community?" I said, "What do you mean?" So with charities, what do you do for your community? I said, "I write checks." He said, "Anybody can write a check. You've been given a voice and, a megaphone, and you need to use it to do more than just aggrandize yourself, And so I started my first charity in 1995, the year that I visited Morrie. And now I have 9 charities that I operate. I don't support them, I operate them.
Right, I shouldn't.
And no, I'm not correcting you. I'm just saying that there are many that I support, but those 9 I operate in Detroit under an umbrella called Say Detroit. Haiti was an accident. I mean, I just went after the earthquake to help out a local pastor who said that his orphanage had been destroyed and he couldn't get a phone call through. So I helped arrange a small little plane and decided to go on this little plane to go see what was going on in Haiti just a couple weeks after the earthquake, which was all over the news. And then I think, like seeing Morrie on television and being somehow drawn to go see him, that was somehow meant to be in my life. And when I landed in Haiti, and the things that I saw, and people all covered with white dust and bleeding in the street and rubble, and every building collapsed and crushed, and people weeping and crying and begging and drinking water out of dirty puddles because there was no other way to get water. And then this orphanage, which hadn't been destroyed but was overrun, and children, sleeping in the dirt and begging for a cup of rice. It never leaves you. And you realize this is an hour away from Miami, on an airplane. I can be here quickly. And I just began to get involved. I brought down a bunch of guys from Detroit, and we made 9 separate trips with they were roofers and plumbers and contractors. Detroit, that's what we do. And they brought all this stuff, and we built the first showers and toilets, first kitchen, first dining room, first school on this place. And we really built it up. And while we were doing that, the pastor admitted to me that he didn't have any money to operate it. So we were building all this stuff, but he wasn't going to be able to feed the kids or hire anybody. And in one of those moments that, you look back in your life and say, why did I do that? I said to him, well, I could probably operate it. I operate charities in Detroit. It's probably pretty similar, which it isn't. And he basically said, praise Jesus, hallelujah. And he handed it over. And I've been operating it ever since. And he's passed away since. And, it goes on 10 years next year. And I'm there every month. And I'll be there the rest of my life. This is never going to stop. But those 52 kids are my charge, and I'll raise them and make sure that they're all college educated. My oldest 2 are already in college in the States. One is pre-med. He's 4.0. I sound like a proud papa now, but I am proud.
Oh.
And he'll go back, and all of them know when they're finished, they'll go back to Haiti. First, they go to the orphanage, and they spend 2 years there doing whatever it is that they trained to do for us. So if he becomes a doctor, he'll be our doctor. We have one who went through culinary school. Now he's our cook. And, so they don't have to give back. But then after that, they'll go into the country and make their own country better. Maybe one day put us out of business. That would be nice. Until then, they know what they have to do.
So I have to ask you a little about your writing. You're one of the most successful writers of all time, the #1 memoir of all time. What is your secret? What do you think it is about your writing that people respond to and connect with?
Well, I don't know that it's a secret, and I don't know that the success of those books is necessarily tied to my writing, but I think the reason that people respond or have responded to my books is that I tried from Tuesdays with Morrie on, and I think I did it with Tuesdays with Morrie maybe subconsciously. I'm sure it was subconsciously because I'd never written a book like that before. But I kept saying to myself, is this about me or is this of some use to somebody else? And anytime the answer was, no, it's more about you, I took it out. And anytime I thought that there was something that was abuse for somebody else, I left it in. And what happened with Tuesdays with Morrie was, I think, because that was a tiny book. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be anything. I just wrote it to pay his medical bills. And I was in New York here, going from publisher to publisher to publisher, and every one of them said, no, boring, you're a sports writer, nobody's interested in that, it's too depressing. I mean, I would have given up if it wasn't for the fact I was trying to pay his medical bills. I had so much negativity, it didn't seem like a good idea to anybody. One publisher took it, gave us the money, which I gave to Morrie 3 weeks before he died. That was all it was supposed to be, just a way to pay his bills. And I wrote the book, and it came out. They printed 20,000 copies, and we thought, well, that's that, and I'll have most of them in the trunk of my car for the rest of my life. I'll be driving around giving them out to people. And then it just found an audience, and people just handed it to one another and handed it to one another. And I think the reason they handed it to one another was what I just told you, was there's something in it for them. And they would come up to me and say, oh, let me show you a picture of my Morrie. Or they would come up to me and say, oh, I'm just like you. You know, I was working way too hard and all that. And you were honest about how you kind of were a bit of a jerk and, you know, too self-absorbed. And I kind of feel that way too. So they found themselves in that book, either through me or through Morrie or both. And I learned something from that, you know, that's a good way to tell a story that people are going to hang on to for a while, if it makes them feel something about themselves. If you want to tell a story that just makes you feel something about yourself, you can publish it and people may get it initially, but nobody's necessarily going to say to someone else, oh, I got you this book as a present, I think it'll help you, or you really like it, or there's a message in this. And so I tried in all my successive books to do that. So The 5 People You Meet in Heaven was based on a story that happened to my uncle about when he died, one of those near-death experiences, and rose above the bed and saw his dead relatives waiting for him at the edge of the bed, and came back to life and later told me about it. And I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting, you know, that maybe people are waiting for you when you go to heaven. What if they're not all your relatives? What if they're like somebody you just met for 5 minutes? But all of the lessons in that book were things that other people can relate to, not me. It wasn't about me and my uncle. It was about, you know, when you feel you're a nobody, there's no such thing as a nobody. You know, everybody matters. So that became the point of that book. And all the successive books that I wrote, I always tried to think, well, what's in this for the reader? You know, or is it just something interesting to me? And maybe that's why they gravitate to them. To be honest, I'm probably the last person you should ask that question to, because I don't actually buy my own books. You know, I write them. So why did you like them if you read them? What was the appeal of them to you?
Oh, because it's just so open and honest and relatable with a sense of humor. And it speaks to the very essence. I mean, I'm a mother. The idea of losing, you always wonder, what's it like?
Yeah.
You take us through what it's like as a guide without like preaching in any way. You inspire and connect. And I think that's just beautiful.
Well, thank you. That's very high praise. I appreciate that.
It's true.
Thank you.
Anyway, but I had to ask you because, you know, how could I not ask?
Well, writer's podcast. So, yeah, you want a book podcast, you should ask.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. And I wish you all the best. And,
thank you.
You know, I'm sure you're going to be mobbed by people. If people are showing you pictures of Morrie,
I'd be happy
have a lot of...
I'd be happy to, because that would mean that her story is being read. And if it inspires other people to hold their children tight and realize the preciousness of them, then I will have done something worthwhile. And so Chika already did. So it's my turn. And I hope that our time together inspires people.
You've absolutely done something worthwhile in so many ways.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
My pleasure.
This episode has been sponsored by Book of the Month Club. bookofthemonth.com. Enter code ZIBBY to get your first book for $5. Thanks for listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. You can follow me on Instagram at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music. Thanks for listening. You could always email me at zibby@zibbyowens.com.